So if a man finds himself in a friend group where everybody's a tough guy and everybody's trying to hold it together in this kind of um, in this, no one has feelings, again, anger or okay kind of situation. Let's just go out, have drinks and watch the sports and do these things that make me not have to feel what I'm feeling inside. I don't think that I think it's going to be a rough road, right? Maybe where they find some solace and some comfort with their feminine partner, where they can, maybe be a little more vulnerable in that space. Maybe that can help a little bit.
Welcome back to Holistic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Luam, and I have a guest with me, Michael Tierno. He is the co-founder of Men of Integrity, which offers immersive men's retreat combining guided psychedelic journeys, emotional support, and community-based accountability. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I guess give us a little background. I know your business started with your own journey with ayahuasca and psychedelics. So can you give us your background and what inspired you to start this business?
Sure. It's more, first of all, it's more than a business. It's more of a passion project, really, between my friend and partner, Yoni Habana, and myself. But the passion behind this is actually lifelong. I didn't quite know that we'd be working in expanded states, or I'd be working in expanded states, but even in high school, my passion and my motivation, what I wanted to do was to do research psychology, understand the human mind, consciousness, a lot of the big questions that we have as humans, as sentient beings on the planet, wondering why we're here, what's our purpose, what does this all mean, does it mean anything? All that kind of stuff has been, been kind of obsessed with it since I was, I would say, about 17 years old. Went through quite a bit of schooling. My parents thought I was a professional student at one point in time, studying social psychology, basically. And then I moved. Actually, I got distracted by the twinkle of money and went and got an MBA, and then started working for, big corporation actually for a while, and then about 10 years ago, I was fairly satisfied with life, but quite atheistic, very what they call a rational materialist. Didn't believe in anything kind of spiritual, whatnot. And through a long story that I've told many times, it probably doesn't serve us to tell here, I ended up going to Peru to try, the Amazonian brew known as ayahuasca, and it transformed my life. It changed so many aspects of it. I found a connection to the divine, which was probably the most profound change in my life, is recognizing that there's something more to the world, this existence, than this 3D material reality. But also, it allowed me to heal a lot of wounds from my childhood, from past traumas, you would call them. I had a fairly decent childhood. It wasn't horrible, but it had its moments. And I, of course, incurred beliefs and things from that, from my earlier years in culture. And a lot of that, and through the experience of working with ayahuasca in Peru, I really got to see through the the pane of glass that you might think of as your ego, your beliefs, your traumas, the way you make sense of the world and think about the world. I got to see through that for a while, and kept going back and kept studying more, kept getting more involved in the area of expanded states and psychedelic states. And to make a long story short, my friend Yoni and I were dabbling in some of these experiences, and we stumbled across a protocol that we've been using for, I think we're on a 13th retreat or something like that now, and it's incredibly transformative. It is a difficult journey, but it is a profound journey. It is a enjoyable journey. Every man who's gone through our process has said, "Wow, that was that was a life changer. That was a life saver. That was a relationship saver, or at least put my relationship, my life in a new perspective so that I can move forward differently than I was moving from in the past. Just like these states changed me so that I can move forward in a more effective and whole way, uh, as opposed to how I was kind of moving through the world in the past.
What is it about ayahuasca that drew you? Because I know there's a lot of different types of transformative psychedelics and rite of passage ceremonies. So, what is it about ayahuasca, or was it
Yeah,
just a random choice?
it was fairly random. I think it was because at that time, this was about 10 years ago, the only real opportunities that were available to Westerners to do expanded states experiences like ayahuasca were only in the retreat setting and mostly in Peru. Now, I've learned since then that there are opportunities in the states to do some expanded states modalities, but 10 years ago, if you looked up what the opportunities were, they were all outside of the United States, and they were mostly having to do with ayahuasca. That was the most top line information that you could find on the internet. Now, importantly, I wasn't looking to have one of these experiences when I started down the path. I was searching for something else, but I stumbled upon ayahuasca and the ideas and the transformations that it was moving in people, and I got interested in that. And having had some expanded states experiences in college and in high school, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is something that I should explore. Little did I know that it was going to really, you know, change the course of my life going forward. And it's not so much the ayahuasca or the it's like everything in my life has changed. It's not like some kind of psychonaut or anything like that. That's sort of the smaller part of it. The how I am with other people, relationships, maybe even how I am with my children in terms of like recognizing them as more of their humanity, having more compassion for others, more gratitude for my life, all those things which operate in me on a day-to-day basis that maybe were not quite so resolution had such a high resolution for me in the past, now have a much greater resolution for me in the present, and have led to a greater kind of life. But there was no real reason. I think I just stumbled upon ayahuasca. They'd say that people get a call for ayahuasca, and that's how it felt. Once I learned about it, I was like, oh, this is something I have to do. And then it's been a journey ever since, you know.
And for those who are new to ayahuasca, what do you do in your ceremonies to help guide people through this journey?
So it's in, so I have so it's important to recognize what I do and what I don't do. So I I have three projects. So to be clear, so one project is an ayahuasca retreat in Peru, and I don't serve medicine there. I go once a year as a facilitator to help support people integrate and make sense of their journeys. But the people who are serving the medicine are, very incredibly trained, incredibly um, experienced ayahuasqueros. So it's a team of people that come in and they serve in the ceremony. The ceremony is done in a group. We have a small group of only 10 participants, and then there can be as many as I've been in a room with as many as 10 additional facilitators that are there to support and serve and play music and and take part in the ceremony. The ceremonies are done in the dark, and there's live music at the place where we go, and it's all these things. But my role in that project called Heart Sanctuary is basically just serve as a facilitator to interview people to make sure that the people who are coming to Peru to meet with us are not contraindicated with anything that might interact with the medicine, that they are psychologically, healthy to a degree that they can experience you know, the the profound experiences that are inevitable with ayahuasca. So that's one project. The other project is I work with people one-on-one in expanded states. I have an office in the Bay Area, and people come from, actually, most of my clients are outside of the state nowadays for some reason. I don't know quite why, but they come into my office. We have an experience. We work through many issues that whatever they come to. Everybody's different, right? Everybody has different things, and in that project, I am working with the people one-on-one in expanded states. And the final project is the Men of Integrity that you mentioned earlier on in the introduction, and that is a group currently for men. And it is a 4-day retreat. Both Yoni and myself and a couple of other facilitators, work with expanded states to help these men really move through their blocks. And it's more than just expanded states. There's a community element. There's an informational component. It's quite a busy retreat. And then when we get out of that retreat, the men that have quote unquote graduated from that go into the community at large. We have a Telegram group, we have monthly support calls, we have challenges. So one of the, to stay on this last bit with Men of Integrity, one of the amazing things about that project that is unique to it at this moment in time, as far as I know, is that when you're done with the retreat, you're not done with the people that you've met or the facilitators. You graduate into a larger community, and we have a lot of community events. We support each other. We challenge each other. We listen to each other's problems and help each other with those things. So this men's crisis that we have in the country, where there's these depths of despair amongst men because they feel isolated and alone, we try and mitigate some of that and offer real friendship and support, a real deep friendship and support. So those are the 3 projects, and that's my role in all of them. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah. I wanted to know, I know when you go through the whole ayahuasca experience, it's a life-changing experience, and eye-opening. What are some things that help people integrate that into their current life?
That's very important. That is the most important question you could have asked. And so let's take it outside of ayahuasca in particular and move it into expanded states, or even more broadly into any kind of experience you have in life. The important part is to integrate whatever you learn about yourself into your life. So there's oftentimes we make a commitment to ourselves, like we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to exercise more. We're going to have a gratitude practice. We're going to be more grateful in our lives in general. Maybe we're going to treat other people with more compassion. Whatever these sort of realizations we might have in an expanded states, or just come up with in real life, oftentimes they just dissipate unless you do something with them. So what does it look like to integrate after an experience? It really involves taking the time to go back to the felt experience that you had under the medicine, for example, to really articulate it. Oh, I remember how much gratitude I felt for my life in that moment, recognizing all these amazing things that I have to be grateful for, including this miracle of even being alive at this time, right? And when you can go back to that experience and bring it into your own life, then you're integrating it. And same thing with, especially I said I would talk about it more broadly, but I'm now staying in the field of the psychedelics. Important to take advantage of what's called the window of neuroplasticity that happens for about 2 to 4 weeks after one of these journeys, where your brain essentially is able to make new connections more easily and prune connections that are not useful. So you can entrain new habits during this 2 to 4 week window post an experience. And so if you're going to decide if one of the things is I'm going to take better care of my body, it's important to get started right away to build those habits. When it's going to be easier to do it, it feels like motivation over those 2 to 4 weeks, but it's actually both the motivation that you get from being excited about it, but also your brain is more open to making the deep changes that you know that you have to make in order to lead a better life. So to the extent that one person can get support for that, we do an incredibly good job about that with Men of Integrity, and also on the one-on-one stuff, a little less so with all ayahuasca retreats. Like I said, integration, thing that's lacking in the field. Really support people to make those lasting changes, and it's incredibly profound. Incredibly rewarding both for the facilitators and for the participants to be able to say that they've made this movement, that they recognize these pain points in their lives, and that they're kind of moving past them and going into life from a more whole perspective, a more true self perspective. I don't like that word very much, but that's basically how it means.
I want to go back to the of integrity and the work you do with that. What did you feel like was missing in society that inspired you to start that?
Was missing from society? Well, I guess let's think about three things. So first of all, men are missing community. We know this. The research says it, that men in their 40s have an average of, I think, 1.5 friends or something. And how often do they see them? Not very often. Isolated, working all the time. They feel that they are simply providers. So that's one thing, is we know that men are missing community, and that's something that Men of Integrity does incredibly well. Second thing, we know that men suffer from this kind of you might call it like a tough guy myth, or something that they can't feel. Like it's funny, in a lot of like comedy routines these days, you hear that men could either feel anger, they're either angry or okay. There's no emotional bandwidth there. So does that mean that men don't have emotional bandwidth? Absolutely not. We all have this capacity to deeply feel what's going on, to deeply be moved by what's going on in our environment, which is what our emotions are telling us. And so helping men unlock the block that prevents them from feeling these things that are actually there for them, and identifying and labeling these feelings, so that they don't operate in a state of anger. Because oftentimes, if men are feeling sad, they're angry. If men are feeling frustrated, they're angry. If men are feeling, shame, they're angry, right? Being able to go deep into the emotional body and articulate what the actual nuance of the feelings is something that's more challenging for men in general, because of maybe socialization or whatever reasons. And so this is another pain point that we aim to support, is to be able to be more connected with the whole being. So emotional, mental, it's kind of like a mindfulness practice, but a little bit more intense and deep. And the third component would be how to relate better in the world. So if you're coming from the approach of anger or okay, it's hard to relate to a partner, let's say a feminine partner, who might have a more nuanced vocabulary for expressing herself, right? And so if you're just angry or okay, what can you do with that as the person who's on the receiving end of that? So we help people get in touch, help men get in touch with their whole being, so that they can express themselves in a more accurate and beneficial way to their partner, and they can build that relationship. There's also, said I would name three things, but a big component of our retreats is also to understand the differences between men and women in terms of what their different needs are in relationship, what turns them on in relationship, and what they need in relationship. Because fundamentally, there's everybody needs some things, but there's some differently weighted features to the benefit of a relationship for a man versus a woman in a cisgendered heterosexual relationship. And when we teach that, and that's a huge eye opener, because men typically, and women typically, view their partner as seeing the world through the same lens that they view the world. and that causes problems because we are specialists in the world. Men are specialists at something, women are specialists at another thing, and have different expectations and different needs in relationship. And when we go to our partner expecting them to react in a certain situation the way we would react, then we're left kind of like, huh? What happened here? What's going on both sides? And it causes problems, and it causes misunderstandings, and it causes strife in relationships. So we try and mitigate that as well.
Yeah, that's very important because I feel like society places these roles. Like women are more comfortable displaying emotions, but society kind of rewards men for stoicism versus like sensitivity.
Yeah,
So they
absolutely.
end up not knowing how to express their emotions.
Right. Absolutely. Um, and women oftentimes don't understand men, you know, why is he this way, for example? Why does he leave his laundry on the floor? Kind of all these kinds of stuff that actually have to do with cognitive processing differences in men versus women. Like women, for example, are super good at multitasking as compared to men, right?
Yeah.
Men are in general, okay, that doesn't mean that every man is terrible at multitasking, but the research shows that women are able to do more things simultaneously than your average woman is able to do more things simultaneously than your average man. But a man in general, has a more deep focus on a specific task, not get distracted by the laundry on the floor, for example. And some people think that that's socialized. Some people think that that's evolutionary. Whatever the reason is, it's where we find ourselves. So we need to kind of understand each other from those perspectives. And just like you said, men oftentimes aren't given the option to feel their own emotions. Now, there's a difference between feeling your emotions, being aware of them, and reacting to it, right? So we don't want to necessarily be reacting via emotion as men or women, but we want to definitely impact how our thinking is being colored by our emotions, for example, and how our behaviors might be colored by the state. But without awareness, you can't know any of this stuff, and it's just kind of an automatic pilot as a being.
I want to talk about the idea of masculine and feminine energy, or sometimes called divine masculine, divine feminine energy, which sometimes can get misrepresented as a gender role thing, but we all have divine masculine, divine feminine energy. Can you
Absolutely.
explain?
So, in in all ancient cultures, they always had something that was related to the divine masculine, and something that was related to the divine, and something that was related to the divine feminine, that they see in all things, right? Even in Catholicism, there's in the what you call it, what's called the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. There's a masculine component there, a feminine component there, and an embodied component. So you have God the Father, that's the masculine, the container of the universe. The Holy Spirit's the energy, which is the feminine, uh, and then the Logos, or the Christ, is the manifestation of creation on the planet, who is always represented on like a lotus leaf on a still plane of water, just in perfect meditation, and his consort Shiva, who is just always in movement, expressing herself, right, as the divine feminine sort of archetype that is dancing. And together, through their union, you have creation of the universe. So it's interesting how you have these kind of, you know, uh, masculine plus feminine together is creation. Of course, you see that with birth, and the birth of any organism, or any mammal anyway. And these templates, these patterns of masculine and feminine, are found everywhere, including ourselves, and they're related to different ways of being, and together and when we're operating through both of these, the interplay between the masculine and the feminine together, dancing in harmony and dancing in unity and dancing towards the betterment of ourselves and mankind, and in the world, we are better selves. So if you so let's see, to answer your question. So oftentimes, if we're talking just about men, we are stifling that divine feminine aspect in us, and we're, misrepresenting our masculine aspect. So the way I like to think about the feminine, or one way that I like to think about the feminine, for example, is a constellation of attributes that's related to the archetype of the feminine. And these would be like intuition, flexibility, expressiveness, gentleness, healingness, being vulnerable, those kinds of very important human qualities that kind of help us, be in relation with other people. And then for the masculine, it's the characteristics of like being logical, being responsible, self-aware, action-oriented, unflappable in the face of danger, those kinds of things, which are very important for making change in the world, right? But one without the other isn't very effective. So we really want to try and develop both so that we can be most effective. And there's a lot of thinking along these lines. My favorite thinking is some thinking in Jungian psychology. He talks about the anima and animus. The in females, what they need to do is to develop their masculine side, and in males, they need to develop their feminine side, and that's how you get to wholeness. And I think it's more than that, but it's something that has been identified at least by one of the greatest psychological thinkers, if not the greatest psychological thinker of all time, Carl Jung. So I don't know if you have any more questions or any additional explorations around that, or if you
Yeah,
react to it, or what do you
do
think?
you feel like there's a collective imbalance of masculine and feminine energy that is causing a dysfunction from a collective standpoint?
Sure. I think that the problem we find in society as a collective is not an imbalance. Well, yeah, it's a retraction away anything that's feminine, both whether we be men or women. So that it's like anything that is feminine is often, less paid, for example. It's less honored. It's seen as less than. And so people retract against that, right? Men especially retract against that. Oh, that's not for me. Or if we tell a little boy, don't be those things that I was naming before. Don't be intuitive, kind, gentle, nurturing. We tell them, don't do that, right? Because that's not manly, right? And then what's the opposite of those things, right? What is the opposite of intuitive, flexible, expressive gentleness? You're going to be authoritarian, controlling, cold, violent, cruel, right? That's the opposite of the feminine. And so when we track against that, and we dismiss that in a person, and in order for them to feel that they can find, the only way they can feel that they can find acceptance is to go away from that. And so what's the opposite of those characteristics? Is those kind of toxic masculine characteristics. But that toxic masculinity doesn't have anything to do with masculinity. It actually has to do with a retraction away from the archetype of the feminine inside each of us. All right. And you can see this also when some people are told to retract away from their masculine characteristics, right? So you can imagine a little girl who wants to go out into sports. She's excited about science, and her parents tell her, hey, that's not very ladylike, right? All these things that are about logic, responsibility, going out into the world and doing these things. No, no, don't do that because that's not very ladylike. All right, so what can I do in order to like please mom and dad? If I can't be logical, I must be irrational. If I can't be responsible, I must be a victim, right? If I can't be self-aware, I have to have an articulated sense of self. I need to be defined by a man, for example, right? So that woman is not settled into her divine masculine archetype. And these are the things that cause problems. The thing that really causes problems, why it's so much in the news, is that when people retract away from their feminine, and they're called toxic, right? Those are the people that are in prison, causing problems, crime, violence, bar fights, all that kind of stuff. When you have these women that have retracted away from their masculine, they don't really cause that many problems. They're the hoarders, the cat ladies, they're, hysterical people. It doesn't mean they're bad or anything like that. They're just like a toxic, the toxic masculine archetype. There's this wounded feminine archetype that also exists in society. It's just not very, very well known. So what we need to do is honor both in all things and in all people, and give support and appreciation for when someone is not only logical, but when someone is operating from intuition as well, for example. It's really important, I think that's kind of the mission of the new, spiritual movement. One of the main missions is that, to embrace and develop these divine masculine and feminine archetypes.
Yeah, I feel like especially the divine feminine is somewhat repressed, even in women, um, through media, music. I see that a lot in music. Um, a lot of even women that are really embracing, they are very much in their masculine energy, and that's being promoted as like women empowerment, not realizing it's kind of causing an imbalance.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's one of the problems. It might be one of the problems why men and women are having more challenges relating, not because a woman should be only feminine, but because everybody's trying to scrabble for a small part of the pie. And, you know, that toxic capacity that I described as men sometimes having, you can find that in women as well. It can turn nasty. And I think, stereotypically, when women, this is stereotype, right? But you see it in movies like Mean Girls and stuff like that. When women retract from their, you know, feminine part, their feminine capacity, they can be quite toxic as well. So I think you're 100% right.
What are some practical ways you feel like men can reclaim their connection to their divine feminine without feeling like they're losing their manliness?
Well, first of all, I mean, this is a tough question. Without support, it's not going to happen, right? So if it's not going to happen in isolation either. So if a man finds himself in a friend group where everybody's a tough guy and everybody's trying to hold it together in this kind of um, in this, no one has feelings, again, anger or okay kind of situation. Let's just go out, have drinks and watch the sports and do these things that make me not have to feel what I'm feeling inside. I don't think that I think it's going to be a rough road, right? Maybe where they find some solace and some comfort with their feminine partner, where they can, maybe be a little more vulnerable in that space. Maybe that can help a little bit, but in general, we need um, we need more knowledge of this in society, more acceptance of men as having feelings, of men as being not just providers but caretakers. That is good. You see a man holding a baby; it's a powerful image, right? It's just a powerful. It gives me the chills thinking about just a big, powerful man holding a baby in kindness. It's very sweet. I think it's very. If I were a woman, it'd be very attractive too. Um, and it's just a very sweet image. And allowing that and giving men permission for that, and letting them know that they're not going to be rejected for being kinder versions and more loving, gentle, compassionate, and uh, beings. Um, that is the key thing. And that is, like I said in the beginning, that is the I think the fundamental thing that we're working on with the community of men that we're putting together in Men of Integrity, is to, after you've gone through the 4 days and you've kind of gotten the walls torn down and you see that you are fully allowed to express yourself in the fullness of your being, so that when you come home now you're practiced and you have a group of support that might be different from the folks that you're engaged with in your regular friend circle, for example. And you also are able to witness and see performed as a role model some of these, objectively strong looking men, able to express themselves and talk themselves and make this safe space, so that the newer guys can get practice and see, like, wow, I have all this inside me that I haven't been able to express. Here's an opportunity for me to express it and practice and feel safe in expressing it. So I think without moving your circles and being and without an incredible force of will, where you are the mover, where you're going against the grain of your friend group and your group in certain parts of the country that might not be as open to these kinds of things yet, it's going to be very tough. but those would be the factors. So a new or an open friends group that is allowing of these things, um, role modeling and support.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Creating a safe space, especially in relationship and friendship circles, because those two are the areas where you feel like if there is no space, safe space to be vulnerable, then it can just the patterns can repeat in other circles. So
Well, they have to, because if you don't feel safe, you're going to just keep operating to protect yourself. It doesn't matter who
yeah,
you are. It doesn't matter. You can't be your best self if you don't feel safe, because you're in a fear retracted mode, right? When we're not safe, we do this, right? We close ourselves up. We close ourselves off from life. So it's only when we feel safe that we can sort of, test out the waters of what it means to be more vulnerable and more expressive and more self-aware, really.
what is something you believed at the start of your journey that you see very differently now, especially around healing and masculinity?
So most profoundly is a sense of the divine miracle that is this entire, creation, whatever you want to call it, this universe, this so a recognition that it's not just atoms bumping up against each other, that we're not, sort of physical robots that just happen to have flesh instead of metal, uh, that there is more to this existence than what society tells us. That would be primarily. In terms of the masculine, feminine, what I learned was to more deeply appreciate uh, the capacities of, the real blessings that the feminine has, um, the amount of real peace and satisfaction that can come from embracing our wholeness rather than blocking part of our wholeness, or stifling it with substances or behaviors like that kind of take us out of the feeling state, out of the being state, and keep us distracted. So those would be the primary two things, I think: divinity and deep connection with the feminine archetype.
Michael, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with before we close it out?
Sure. I would leave the listeners with a hope that if they haven't found a recognition that every moment is something to be grateful for, and that we should be striving for peace rather than joy, really. Peace, because peace is long lasting. It's great to have moments of joy, but if we're striving for the next big dopamine hit, which feels like joy, those things are not, those things eventually sputter out. But peace can be within us at all times. Gratitude can be within us at all times. I ask people to recognize that everybody's on there. Every single human that you look at in the grocery store, at a movie theater, or sitting next to you is struggling with something, and have compassion for them. Because when we don't have compassion for anybody or any person, we other them, we make them less than human, and that's how we get down to the road of of not recognizing each other's as being the brothers and sisters that we all are to one another. And I would like to let people know that there are opportunities, especially at this time, for very profound healing using expanded states, and that the opportunities are around. I would like to tell people to really ask a lot of questions if they're considering doing any kind of a retreat in Peru, for example, or a men's retreat, or sitting with a guide for an expanded state for one-on-one, to really be comfortable in their own skin, to ask all the questions so that they feel that it is the right fit for them. So that's what I would leave with your audience.
Good advice. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing about altered states, whether it's through a mystical experience or meditation or through ayahuasca or any psychedelics, is that it, it opens you up to our interconnectedness. and there's no way to deny it after
Mm.
that. It kind of changes it's it's bound to change your life regardless.
What's your experience with these, if anything?
So I've been too scared to try ayahuasca, but I, you know, I probably will at some point in my life, maybe, but I'm super scared. I've had experience with psilocybin mushrooms. Um,
What does it mean for
it's
you to be scared?
um just the way my brain works is too open, and psilocybin, like mushrooms, were a bit much for me. I personally like to microdose because I'm still not too altered, but I get a lot of like aha moments. It connects the dots for me. It's just a constant piecing together a bunch of puzzle pieces in my head for me. But when I do get into a super altered state, even with mushrooms, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. Um, I feel like, I don't know, my mind is too open. I'm like, what if I enter a different dimension and then I won't get back to who I am? And then the timelines, it's too much going on up here to get
You get a
too
thought
altered.
loop. Yeah, I get it. When you did the deeper expanded states with psilocybin, did you do them by yourself? Did you do it with a friend? Or did you do it with a guide?
Um, with a friend, um, yeah, it's usually with people. Um,
Mhm.
it's
A little more recreationally, like in a group.
Yeah, in a group, but not so much. I don't think none of us really think of it as a recreational thing. I don't think of it as a recreational thing. It's like one of those reset things because I feel like the effects last for a good 3 to 6 months afterwards.
Yeah.
But I can't quite explain what happens. It's like when I get out of that altered state, I can't really explain what happened. I have so many realization, but I feel like like the information is so multidimensional. There's no way to explain it when I get back. But I feel like every time it's prescribed something different. There are times where I was just laughing for 6 hours straight, but I realized what I was laughing at. Some of it was dark, some of it was happy thoughts, but it was all funny. Like it was like a way to, it didn't matter how the thought was. It's like I was still laughing about it. But to get these types of realization and still be able to laugh about it, to take it lightly, that was kind of interesting to me. But it's hard to explain. That's why I like microdosing
Yeah.
because
And it,
I'm not in an altered
oh,
state,
I
but
know.
it gives me
I
a lot
know.
of realizations.
Well, what you're telling me speaks very much to like the importance of why it's important to work with a guide as opposed to just friends and trip sitters. Because a guide, A, will be able to get you out of the where you feel like, oh no, I'm entering another dimension, I'll never come back. A guide can hear that or notice that or be with you in that thing and bring you right to the edge where you don't, where that fear is no longer there, and you can go into that other dimension or that other space in a in a more easeful way, because that release is really a lot of where the magic happens. That's A. And then B, in terms of making sense of it, an experienced guide can help you put words on and put cognition onto these states that are essentially pre-verbal, and they're fundamental, right? They're below language, and so when you have this imagery and these sensations that are tied up, it's so rich and so and such an incredible tapestry. Like I don't even know how to talk about it. I don't know how to explain it. And a guide can bring you through exercises and stuff after the fact through the process of integration that would really help to, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that image. Oh, now I see what that meant. All these kinds of things. So I would recommend, it's good that you're cautious. Um, I would recommend everybody be cautious. Don't do something that might, but realize that there are different ways to do these things, and that under supervision, or the watchful eye of a guide, sorry, you can really extract a lot of meat and even go a lot deeper than you thought you were willing to go, and come out the other side feeling quite unscathed relative to trying some of these expanded states on your own and being like, oh, that was intense and whatnot, because there is a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely not a party party thing. It's more of, I'm usually either alone or with one or two other people that are, ready to have a deeper experience and have an understanding. But yeah, I could see how having a
Sure.
guide, especially one that is, educated in psychology, would really help in integrating and making meaning out of some of these things, because I think the information you get is very important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a different type of therapy session. And so, yeah, it would help
Yeah.
to understand some of that.
Yeah. And I would tell you again, I was surprised. Wish I'd asked these questions earlier in the interview, because it's interesting. Ayahuasca, most people are scared of the purge. That's what 9 times out of 10, if I ask them, they tell me, oh, I'm scared of doing ayahuasca, or I'm scared of trying it, or I'm scared of that. And said, what is, I'm scared of throwing up. I'm scared of the purge. And it's like, really? That's it? Haven't you ever thrown up before? And it's, so I was surprised to hear what you said. It is a profound, deep experience. It's more, like the psilocybin that you're talking about, it's in your heart and it's in your mind. But with the ayahuasca, it actually goes in your body, and you have these stuck points in your body, energetic stuck points that are there due to past traumas, usually, or due to like whatever is going on. Um, and ayahuasca likes to go in there and give you a little massage and release that stuck energy, and that's what comes out in the purge. Energetically, and you feel so much lighter and better, not because you threw up anything, but because that energetic stuckness, the body feels looser, the body feels more at ease in itself, and not to mention the peace and the sort of connections that you might make cognitively, emotionally, like you were talking about with the psilocybin. So be nervous, but
Yeah,
do try
I'm,
it someday.
I'm definitely not, I'll take the purging part. I'm not worried about that just because I know it's such a transformative and important journey you go through that. I've talked to a couple of people on the podcast about ayahuasca, and ibogaine is the other one that's
Mm-hmm.
quite
Ooh,
rough
ibogaine is
to go
another.
through. Both
Yeah.
are rite of passage in some countries. And there's several people that came on the podcast and talked about how it's helped them um, beat alcoholism, cigarette addiction, depression, all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things, childhood trauma. So I know how transformative it can be and how
Of course.
important it is.
Yeah. So wonderful. Well, thank you, Luam, for your time, and thank you for your service in this podcast. You're much appreciated.
Thank you for coming on. And for the listeners, I'll have Michael's information in the description if you're interested in joining one of his sanctuaries. Thank you for listening.